For the last decade, EVs have been gaining popularity, and we're all familiar with the idea that they are the path to a greener future. Maybe it's the idea that EVs are lowering your carbon footprint, or maybe it's just the 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. Either way, we wanted to unpack the discussion a bit more and talk about whether or not EVs are in fact net positive to the environment when we consider all factors. In today's episode, I'm joined by Chris, Sage, and Anthony to discuss this a little further. Guys, welcome to My Generation. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
Ready to talk about EVs?
Yeah.
So our first segment here is whether or not EVs are the solution to climate change. So we'll start it off hot. Sage, I'm curious to hear your thoughts here. Do you believe EVs are truly a greener alternative to what we're using now for major modes of transportation?
I think the key is the word "the." So I don't think that it's the one and only solution, but it is definitely, I think we can all agree, or most people can agree, that it is a greener alternative than what we're currently doing. I mean, there's nothing that is going to be one and only solution. There's always going to be cons to every solution, but this is still one step forward into where we need to go into the future.
Valid point. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I would say that the problem with EVs is, number one, how they're being manufactured right now. So where are the batteries being made? Where's large parts of the vehicles are being made in China, right, where we have no environmental controls. And then the other problem is these EVs are running on electricity, and how are we generating that electricity? So unless we have a clean solution kind of beyond the actual point of charging, it's not going to necessarily be the silver bullet that everyone thinks it's going to be for pollution or carbon or whatever you want to call it.
You seem to look at it from a very logistical perspective, and Sage, you seem to look at it from well, we want to get here, so let's work to get here. Do you think that's a valuable take? Is, hey, listen, we got to obviously solve the logistics, but we want to get there. Do you agree with that?
Logistics first, because that's what's going to help us get there faster. I think we all know time's of the essence. I'm getting sick of the conversation that climate change is coming. It's already here. It's already happened. So I don't think EVs are the end-all be-all, but they're going to play a part in reducing emission and our carbon footprint.
Why did society embrace them so quickly?
Because I think now they're finally starting to take it seriously. So they ran to something that EVs were around in 1996. The EV1, it was made by General Motors. They've been here before, so you run back to something
before
that...
the 1900s EVs were around.
I'm not that old. I was born in 1990. So it's here. It's easy to run back to, and I think there's like an attractiveness behind electric vehicles.
Okay, so one of the things, and this is a heavy point of conversation here, is we want to try to get rid of combustion cars as soon as possible. So an interesting stat I got from the government of Canada actually said that we jumped from 1% of registered cars in Canada being EVs to 5.3% in a matter of 4 years. Now, do you think it's reasonable to assume that we'll get to at least 50% by 2030? Because that's when they're trying to get there. Sage, what do you think?
I think it is doable, because if you look at just even our phones, when we were like maybe 10 years old, there was very, very a number of people that had smartphones in their pockets. And now that you're looking at it, every single person has one. I think that's going to be the wave for electrical vehicles. I think right now we're in like the flip phone era where we don't really know what's going to happen, but I think give it another few years and it's going to be the new trendy thing.
But do we have another few years to look at this?
Yeah, we definitely have another few years.
You don't see it as a major time issue here?
I mean, every model that we've been given has said that the ice cap should be melted and we should all be swimming in here, but we're still here. So the models seem to keep getting pushed back. But the problem with EVs is, like, we're talking about an affordability crisis in our own country where people can't afford rent. Now we're talking about going and financing a new vehicle. So that's going to be a challenge that we're going to have to overcome if we're going to continue to see that growth of 4% to 50%.
In terms of how we actually build the cars. Okay, so how we build the cars, we brought up lack of recyclability, even though they're working on it. Still, the point remains, if we're under a time crunch, do we look at EVs? Because there's a lot of technology that still has to evolve, and we still have to look for natural minerals. We're at a copper shortage right now, so how in the world are we supposed to do this by 2030?
Well, that's why you're seeing billions of dollars, the federal government investing in battery plants. That's big in Ontario. There's billions of dollars going around. I think Stellantis is a big one that's going down in Windsor. I don't really know what's going on in the rest of the country, but you see a push for the industry. You see a push. I don't think it's going to be accomplished because I think that there's going to be a lot of changes. in the next 6 to 7 years. I think the federal government will change. I think the attitudes towards it, I think the attitudes towards fossil fuels will change. We might go back to the antiquated way. I don't know.
Anthony, I've
Yeah.
got to cut you off.
Cut
We're
me
gonna,
off.
we're gonna get into the next one. When we come back, we'll look at the most common concerns people have with this solution.
I'ma rule the world, yeah.